Exactly. Certainly not the Zoom thing.
All right, you're up.
Okay. Hello. Welcome to the September 6th meeting of the Kennebunkport Planning Board. And the first order of business is to take attendance. George Lichty and Ed Francis both apologize for not making it tonight. So, and Mike hasn't made it here yet. So when he does, he has a vote. Okay, so the minutes of the last meeting, I guess Larry sent a correction or some comments in on.
I just made some minor comments, yes. So Patricia updated it, so. I move to approve the minutes as amended.
Second.
So, in favor?
Approve.
Approve? Approve.
Approve.
Okay.
There's Mike.
Here comes
So,
Mike.
and here's Mike, perfect timing. I'm sure he approves also.
I approve.
Perfect. Now it's unanimous.
Yes. So, you have a vote tonight. George and Ed are both missing.
Oh, boy. Good thing I came.
Yes.
So good thing to come, you came. Okay. Anyway, first item is number 230702, Richard and Mary Steiger, 11 Wildwood Ave. And this is a public hearing day, so. Guess just a quick run through of what, we've heard the last two meetings, so it doesn't have to be detailed.
Perfect, thank you. I'm Amy Noonan. I'm here representing Richard and Mary Steiger as a trustee of the property. And we are looking to have the two-story existing property removed and build a new two-story existing property that is accessible for my father's wheelchair.
Right. So, any questions from the board on this one?
None, no.
Well, I'm still stuck on this one because the elevation of the ground floor, the first floor, is at 11 feet. But this is in the AE 13 flood zone, which means the first floor should be at 15 feet. So
Is that the current flood zone or
yes,
the
it is the
coming?
2017 flood maps. So that's where I'm stuck on this one. So, I don't know what to. So, strictly speaking, if this property was consistent with previous ones we've seen here recently, they would have plans showing the elevations adjusted for the FEMA flood maps. So that's all. So in fact, the implication of this is, in our list of things, adequate provision has been made to handle stormwater runoff or other drainage problems. The answer is no. Okay?
What I guess is the way I was looking at,
Mike?
the way I was looking at that is it
Closer to the
was
mic, please. Oh, sorry.
closer. Oh, Lord. There. Close enough?
Yeah.
All right. Was that it was non-conforming, and as long as it didn't move that more non-conforming, i.e. lower the thing, then, because I was taking non-conformance in 3 dimensions, the close to the property lines and coverage and all that. So as long as the new structure wasn't making the case worse, then I was figuring that it was, something to point out, but not an issue to have a one against.
But the answer on this one is adequate provision has been made to handle stormwater runoff or other drainage problems. The answer is no. Finding no, has not. It's going to flood when the storm comes. So I guess the question is how to resolve this. They apparently don't want to do that, but it's not consistent with
I would say that most things when we see, especially a complete, tear down rebuild, the new one does in fact meet the new
Yes, that's
But
my
this-
point
the
here.
new map.
But this is not a requirement in our land use ordinance, right?
Well, but it is.
No, I understand what you're saying about stormwater runoff, but meeting the flood level requirements is not.
It is, because it's in the floodplain management ordinance, and our LUO it says everything has to be constructed according to 219, which is the floodwater management. So, in fact, we have to consider the floodwater management ordinance. It's actually in there. I read it several times,
Okay.
because I'm stuck, see? So, I mean, I guess my question is, are we recommending they apply for a what do you call it?
waiver.
Waiver? I mean, that's the solution here, but the answer is still no, unless the comment is pending granting of a waiver. See?
Warner, my father did speak to Warner about this, I know, and Warner's drawings did not have this property at all in part, any of the property was in a flood zone?
It is AE 13. If you just look at the map,
Okay, so the drawings that Warner provided were not accurate?
I don't know,
Okay.
I didn't see, I don't know what Warner provided, but there's definitely on the code enforcement website, there is the FEMA flood maps, and I think this one is 601 or 602, somewhere in there, the 600 range, and you'll see,
Is this the right one?
well,
Well, there's another way of looking at this. Because the property is non-conforming,
yeah,
it's non-conforming now in terms of the elevation.
yes,
And what we normally do is say, basically, yeah, it's non-conforming, but they have a right as long as they're not increasing the non-conformance. And, so I'm not sure you even need a waiver here, because in many ways, we allow things to be the same as they were, even though we have new requirements that would not be met if they were building today under the code. But under the code that says non-conforming does not have to meet the conforming rules. If it doesn't increase the non-conformance, they can build the same as they had before. So one of the ways to handle that in 1010 A is to say that, no, it does not meet, but it basically is, I don't know what you want to say, approvable under the, Section 8.
it's not,
of
it's
the-
not making it more non-conforming. So, are we setting a precedent here? So anybody
I
can
don't
just-
know if we're setting a precedent, but I know that people have gotten away with things, because they haven't increased the nonconformance, but they can replace something that still has the same setbacks,
Yeah, setback.
even though it doesn't meet the setback rules. Because
And I
it was
was
already
just-
that way.
And that's why I was looking at it in 3 dimensions. There's the setbacks from the property lines and that. And I was just saying there's a setback in the ground, and I'm not worsening the impact. I'm not making it better, but I'm not making it worse.
It's at their own risk,
Right.
basically.
They may not get flood insurance successfully.
Yeah,
Right,
but
and,
that's their choice.
right.
Right.
So that's another way of looking at it. I don't know if you want to look at it that way. Did you find anything?
At this point, we have a hand raised in Zoom line.
We haven't opened the public hearing yet, so unless it's Werner.
Is
So-
it Richard Steiger?
No, it's Emily Gill.
That's the other trustee.
Oh, yeah, okay, it's okay then.
They have waived that. My father has spoken to that, and he's researched, the design team has researched the flood variance and things, and he's spoken to Warner and got drawings, and he understands that, and it's really due to the decks, we talked about the ramps and so forth that are
Yeah.
needed.
Right.
I understand, yeah.
If he were to increase it to that 15-foot level, it would make the ramp space so much bigger.
Okay.
And so that has been considered, and they understand they would have to waive that.
So what we're saying is this going to be approvable because it doesn't make it more non-conforming.
Right.
It
Yeah.
is only as non-conforming as it was before. Okay.
I have an increase.
It's either
increase it.
non-conforming as it was before or less non-conforming.
Right, but this doesn't make it more non-conforming.
Right.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, and what Werner suggested as well is just, and what we discussed with Mike when talking about drafting the findings of fact, was just adding an additional piece that the applicant would have to, meet those requirements in the floodplain ordinance as reviewed by the code enforcement officer, as the approving individual.
So throw it on Werner.
Yeah, throw it on Warner.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's one of your conditions.
Why not?
I put that in already and
All right.
Yeah.
and an updated copy after
Okay,
running this one around the
All right.
house again.
okay.
All right, so I guess that answers your issue.
That's my issue.
Okay. All right, so I guess I'd like to open the public hearing unless your folks would like to, your other guys would like to speak.
Is Richard Steiger raising his hand on Zoom?
He's there, but he's not raising his hand.
He is trying to call me. I don't know what the precedence for this is, for him to be able to speak via the,
He can speak
he can speak? Okay, can I,
on Zoom.
on Zoom.
Yep, I'll allow him to talk right now, see if he will unmute himself.
He just got transferred to a rehab. He had major surgery last Friday, so he can't access Zoom microphone. I don't think. That's why he's calling my phone. But I think everything's gone through, right? Like approval so far? Or are there any questions for my dad at this
We don't have any
point?
additional
No.
questions.
It's
Okay.
not
No,
approved, we
But
we
no,
found
but
it
just-
complete,
okay.
We do need to open the public hearing though.
Okay.
now.
Yeah, he's all set.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to open the public hearing. Are any hands being raised?
No hands raised now.
Okay, well then I'm going to close the public hearing, unless one of you fine folks would like to. No, I didn't think so. Okay, so I guess that we have a plan here on getting it, making it approvable based on not being
Yes.
more non-conforming.
Yes.
So
So
I will take a motion then.
I'll make a motion to approve the application.
I'll second it.
Okay?
I approve.
I approve.
Approve.
Approve?
Okay, so it is approved. We do have a finding of facts which we'll read at some point, I think.
No, we can make sure that everybody's comfortable with the additional language that I
Yeah,
put
and I
in.
think we'll read the
And-
finding, you don't have to be here for the finding of facts reading.
So just to have everybody have a chance to look, seeing it's different, slightly different, I added the bit about
that's
the
fine.
code enforcement to item 2.
Okay, so anyway, we will read the finding of facts at the next meeting, and somebody has to come eventually and pick them up from code enforcement and take them to get them to the registry of deeds. But you don't have to be here for the signing, it's just
Okay.
reading.
And that will be at the next meeting, the finding of
At the next meeting,
facts?
we'll read the finding of facts,
Okay,
sign it,
thank you.
and it'll get notarized and be ready to file.
Wonderful. Thank
So,
you very
yeah,
much.
can watch it, it's really exciting to watch us read. So,
I can't wait. I'm definitely going to record that for sure. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so let's move to the second item, which is 63 Pier Road, Flycatcher LLC. Is there someone representing Lisa? Okay.
Hi, good evening. My name's Tim Forrester. I'm here with Flycatcher on behalf of the applicant. This is the public hearing portion, so I'll give you a quick
Now,
intro.
Yeah, this is a continued initial review. We had some issues last time.
Okay,
Not a public hearing yet.
very good. So this is a proposed existing structure that was damaged in the recent winter storm, and the applicant wants to rebuild it. For the most part, it's a replacement in kind. However, the old pier, it was an older pier. The elevation was rather low, so made sense to raise the elevation of it. We did, based on the last meeting, make some changes to it in order to keep ourselves locked into that same footprint. We'd originally had, because we raised the elevation, we extended the pier back into the upland, but kept the float at its same ending point in order to make it more consistent and stay within its original build design. Instead of extending the pier backwards, we just lopped that off and added a set of stairs to start in the original location. We also spoke with the property owner about any other changes that might make it more conforming. They do want to hang on to the existing width of it, but we are keeping it within that footprint. So I think that was the real change. We also added in the cross-sectional view, you'd ask to see the existing and the proposed sort of overlaying on one another. So we've done that as well. Demonstrates that the float lands in the exact same spot as it did before, and we're making the pier shorter with a longer ramp.
Is that in your slide deck? We can put it up if it is.
Yep, everything's up there if you want to share it to the public. Could just probably the very last page. Yeah, these are all the colors fades out a little bit there on the proposed pier section, but you can see the existing in red and the proposed raised elevation on top of that. And again, it's a shorter pier with a longer ramp, so the permanent structure's much longer than what was out there before.
I guess one of the questions that I had was, are stairs included or not? Because I know they're not included in area for sizing, but here the stairs would add 6 feet onto the end. So is that included in the length or not? Because when I run the numbers, I was getting different numbers. I was getting 117 feet versus 113. But I don't know. I looked through the requirements and I couldn't find anything specific to stairs when it came to a pier.
Yeah, I agree with you, that if you look at the definitions of the requirements, it's walkways, docks, wharf, including ramps and floats, shall be no longer than a total length of 100 feet, but doesn't say anything about stairs. And a walkway is really not a stair. So I don't know whether we've really, I think we've come across that once before on docks, and we haven't included the stair.
Probably right.
But it was a long time ago.
I think if you look at that
Right.
that drawing, you'll see the starting point, whether it's stair or pier, is the exact same location. I'm not sure if that helps clarify what you're
So
getting
you're
at.
saying if you included the length of the stairs, that it would come out to 113 feet?
Or 117.
I got 117.
I think, yeah,
I depending on which way you angle the float, 8 or 10 feet. I'm assuming it was the 8-foot
So the
depth.
the pier is 68 feet. The proposed ramp's 35, so that's 103. The ramp lands almost in the middle of the float,
Right.
so there is an additional 4 feet there, so that's 107.
if the ramp lands in the middle of the float.
Yeah.
Is that how
It's a
meant?
small, it's a
Yeah.
small ramp. Sorry, it's a small float.
Small
So
float.
you want the ramp to land closer to the middle so that it doesn't, sit at an angle.
Okay, I was assuming it was closer to the edge.
But I think the other part of this is that, this was an existing non-conforming structure that we're replacing within the same footprint. So while the town ordinance says, you're allowed a maximum length of 100 feet, this pre-existed that ordinance, which is,
Well, there is such a thing as a waiver for that, but,
true, yes, I believe the
and
board
you
has the
haven't
ability
asked for
to.
that, but,
Yeah.
one of the things I like about the stairs is that the edge of the pier is raised above the ground a bit, and one of the requirements is that it be at least a foot off the ground.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, and here we've done 3 feet, I think, on
Yeah.
average. The drawings had it also at 70 versus 68, I believe. At least the set of drawings I think I was looking at.
on the cross-section, it says, on the plans, they say 68. For the pier. 6 by 68.
Maybe it was the earlier one I was looking at.
The other thing is, on your application, your calculations, as I add them up, come up to 115 feet. And what you're doing is you're saying it's now 113 feet.
So it's 103 for the pier and the ramp. And then half the float width, which is another 5, actually that's 10, oh, it's 4 feet on, so that's 107.
Well, what you said on your application was 85 for the pier and 20 for the ramp, that's 105. And then I was adding 10 for the float, so it would come out to 115.
I think the original had it at 85. The original pier length was 85.
85.
But,
Yeah.
but since the original that we came in on the first meeting for had it at 85, now we removed that 15 feet from the upland and shrunk it back and added the stairs. So
Right.
that's where it came down to 68.
But I'm
just
talking
in this
about
last meeting.
original, starting point, original.
Pardon?
I'm talking about the starting point, the original pier,
Had the original pier at 85 feet.
right, and that
And
would
a 20,
come,
20-foot ramp, right?
yes,
And then whatever you have for the float.
10 for the float would make it 115.
Yeah, but they're saying the float, and is it, we hit mid-float and that's the length we include, so should we be including 4 to 5 feet for the float?
It's 4.
I don't know what the standard is.
This particular design has the ramp landing in the middle of the float, and it's an 8 by 10 float, so it's 4 feet.
Okay, it's possible in the original, the design had the ramp coming down at the edge of the float.
I mean, at the end of the day, I think we're coming down to a very small margin of error here, which you could also, if you wanted to get into the nitpickiness of it, when the ramp is up at high tide as opposed to down at low tide, there's a deviation there as well. It's actually less with this longer ramp than it was with the shorter ramp, because the shorter ramp would tilt down more and pull the float in tighter, or stick it out further.
Right.
So
Yeah,
it's,
it's
I believe, to the best of our knowledge, we're within the original footprint.
I can see where you came up with 113, so, you know, pretty
Leave
good.
it there.
But the key thing is that it starts at the same place the original one started, and then it ends, I guess, where the original one ended.
Right.
Well, there you go. It's not, it's,
It's a little
It,
higher.
it's not any more non-conforming
it's-
than
it's not
what
any
previously
more
existed.
non-conforming, so, you know, gold star, there we go.
Yeah.
Case closed.
Yeah.
Well, I would like to see something else on there, and that's, it's not a requirement because you have the right not to do it, but the spacing between the planks on the pier, if you could look at the requirements there, it's at least a half-inch spacing between them. It would be nice if you could do that.
Is that stated in the ordinance, that they're
Yes.
half-inch
Yes.
deckboard
There's
spacings?
there's a lot of detail in the
Okay.
ordinance about how the.
Yeah, no,
how
it's,
the
it's,
spacing-
it's challenging to remember every single town's minor detail,
But the point
more
is, if you look-
particular details.
If you look at the
Yeah.
ordinance, it's got some very specific
Yes.
instructions about how the pier needs to look.
Yep, yeah, no, half-inch deckboard spacing's not an issue.
Yeah,
Yeah.
half-inch is nice because it allows more light through.
Yep.
And you've got 6-foot width there, and, you know, people are looking more at the marine environment and
Yep.
how it affects, you know, like baby fish, which like to come up towards the edge of the shore to protect themselves and so forth.
Yeah, there's,
The light requirement, it turns out to be important.
there's a lot of factors in calculating how much light can actually penetrate through that. If you look at the construction of the stringers themselves, which are 3.5 inches wide and almost 12 inches tall, and then the thickness of the deck board along with the angle of the sun and, you know, during the growing season, I've looked at quite a number of docks and how spacing impacts light penetration on a pier. And it turns out that elevation is actually your best friend for,
Yeah, I was happy to see the elevation.
yep,
Some places are even making glass planks instead of wood ones for people to walk on, but allows the light to penetrate.
yep. I haven't heard of that.
I don't recommend that here.
No.
Yeah.
Now, my own personal biggest objection, I wasn't here last time, I'm sure you know, is in fact the 6-foot width. It's way wider, I realize it was your original is 6 feet.
Yep.
But that is awfully wide, given the 4-foot width spec in our ordinance. That's just there. I mean, I don't much like it, I agree, you've made it less non-conforming,
But not in that dimension.
not in that dimension.
Yeah, it wasn't, I tried. I don't know how else to say it. I know it's the owner's property, it's their point, and they're adamant that they'd like to hang on to that width.
And they'd like to get it approved also, I bet.
They would, yeah. But we have come forward with other concessions to try to make that.
Yeah.
But the existing dock is 6 feet wide, so
Yeah.
again, this is
Correct.
just not less, okay, it's not more non-conforming.
It's not more, I didn't say I'm making any sense.
Okay.
I'm just saying that I really don't like 6-foot width,
I feel, I'm uncomfortable with it too,
Yeah.
I think,
you know, and that would have been the major occurrence of making it less non-conforming. But please-
They gave on others and not that.
Hmm?
They gave on others and not that.
right.
Yeah, well, I mean, the rest of the changes are quite sensible, you know, making it higher up so it doesn't,
And
Rip
short and
apart.
shorter as well. I mean, when you shorten the
Yeah,
overall length of the permanent structure, that has a significant impact.
It's on the notes on the drawing here, it's marked 70 on both the drawings, on the proposed, not 60.
Yeah. Thank you. We'll make that change for the next one.
So, as I recall last meeting, though, the original proposal was for 4 feet, and then we suggested that they apply with the 6 foot just to retain the width that they already had. Bill?
I didn't
No.
hear anything like that.
Yeah,
No,
I think,
I listened to the meeting.
Ed may have mentioned something.
Ed asked us the same
Yeah.
question.
Yeah, so I'm recalling the last meeting,
Yes,
which is why we're looking at a 6 foot wide this time. I
it was
believe.
6 foot wide last time.
Yeah,
yeah.
well, but that's the point. Instead of cutting it down to 4,
They didn't change that.
they didn't change it.
I understand. Sucks. But anyway,
So I did have one question, though, on the columns, on the posts.
Yes.
So are you gonna remove the existing ones?
There's nothing out there right now.
Well, but you got an existing dock, right? So it's got some columns under the.
Well, we're showing that as a demonstration. The existing pier is completely gone.
Oh, completely gone.
Yeah.
So my point is, you're gonna require a DEP approval on this?
Yes.
And so, my question is, are they gonna make you reuse the existing boreholes for your new columns, your new posts?
No, this is a new application before the state and the Corps because we've made changes to it.
Okay. So, what's the likelihood that they'll make you reuse the existing boreholes?
They will not.
Okay, all right. Okay.
all right. Any more questions? Okay, so I guess, your motion that this is a complete.
I move to approve this application as complete.
I'll second that.
Okay, Nina,
I agree.
agree?
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 So, next time there will be a public hearing.
Understood. Thank you very much.
Okay. All right, that leads us to item 3, which I bet you're gonna also represent, if I had to guess. Which is item 230-704-22 Agampicus Avenue, Atlantic Environmental.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Tim Forster here on behalf of
This
Atlantic
time
Environmental.
We did approve it as complete last time, so this will be the public hearing, but why don't
Great.
you describe your
Yep, so this proposed project, 22 Agamenticus Avenue, their existing structure has a rather old vertical retaining wall that the property owners have been meticulously maintaining over the years and mortaring throughout the summer to keep it together. And they've, I think, finally reached the point with all the circumstances happening along the coast that it's just not feasible anymore to keep trying to patch that up. In addition, an area to the north of the property, the wall has fallen apart, and beyond that, the cobble storm beach continues to just blow right over the top, taking out vegetation and everything else. There's a couple significant trees in that northern section, as well as just to the sort of northeast of the house that they want to try to hang on to as well. So the proposal is to get away from that vertical wall and add a riprap front to it. So it's essentially a one-to-one slope, approximately coming up 6 to 7 feet and out 6 to 7 at the base, sloping that back up. Where there's ledge, those will be pinned into ledge. In other areas, half the diameter of those large stones will be buried. These are significant rocks that are proposed, 4 to 6 foot diameters. They're quarry blasted, irregular rock that will help to disperse wave action as it comes in. So if there's a video that we have in the slideshow, I think it might play. And it shows the December storm where
You leave for the next slide?
yeah, if you just go down a couple slides there. Yep. So there's the existing parcel. That was back when the original wharf was being constructed, the barge in place, but you can keep going.
So what's the date on that picture? That one with the barge there?
I'd have to
Like, I
look
mean, like
back at it.
1960 or?
No, that wasn't, that was built not that long ago. Proc rebuilt there was an existing, it was an entire stone wharf that filled the whole area, and that was removed and replaced with a new dock that just had a significant granite crib out on the end. So it was a single span out.
Okay.
But this was the most recent storm, if that'll play. So there's the current dock, and the wave action blowing right up over the top of it. So it's a vertical wall right to the north of that pier, and you can see when the waves hit it, they just smash into it and shoot straight up.
And what kind of, was this like a 10-year storm, 5-year storm? Any idea?
I don't know how they categorized it. I do know that this was approximately 5 to 6 feet over the highest annual tide, which is pretty significant.
Okay, thank you.
So in that area to the right of the dock was the section of vertical wall, and they had originally wanted to carry this riprap even further south. But if you see what happens when those waves come in, I think we're going to resolve the problem just by stabilizing that area and not having to do anything further south. So, what else? So the area to the north is a little bit different. There's no existing structures there. It's a cobble storm beach, and in that location, so keep going. You can see there sort of patch jobs on the wall, and it's undercutting in spots, cracking all the way through. There's washouts on the back side of it that they've filled in with some smaller riprap just for the summer season. And next slide. That's the beginning of the section that's completely failed out now. Keep going. And then this is the end of the wall and the storm beach to the north. Can't quite tell, but that was completely overtopped, and they had a significant amount of debris that ended up in the lawn, along the house, in the driveway. And it's not the first time it's happened there, but this particular one knocked out all the vegetation on the top of the bank, so it's potentially only going to get worse. So I guess with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, so, any
I,
questions?
I have some questions, yes.
Leader?
So, yes, so I was looking through the application, and I noticed you're referring to the 1983 flood maps, but of course, we have the 2017 flood maps that supersede these.
Okay.
Shows you're in the velocity zone 19 feet.
Mm-hmm.
So if you look on the flood map, the whole lot floods, basically. And so how would so I guess I'm requesting you to consider the 2017 flood maps and how that would affect your proposal. That's the general category.
Sure.
But specifically, I mean, you're in a velocity zone, okay? So, I mean, so the storm that you showed was, that was just a warm-up. The big one is coming sometime. So, I read that the existing wall is basically stones and mortar, and it's deteriorating. But you propose to pin, basically, I guess, over 100 feet, you're going to have 12 6-foot-long granite beams, right, pinned. But are you sure you want to pin granite to a failing wall? And so that's just a question. But the, I guess more specifically, is the granite application just for a view, kind of an architectural decoration, or do you expect it to contribute to stability? Because if you want it to contribute to stability, it seems like it's a big risk because you're supporting it on something that's deteriorating. I know you're going to have riprap in front, but the deterioration could be non-uniform. So, do you want to think about, my question is, do you think you really need that? If this is for, decoration, architectural purposes, maybe you want to keep it. But if this is for storm, reducing storm damage, maybe you want to just think about heaping up the riprap higher because it's going to overtop at some point anyway. So you don't have to answer that right now, but that's one of my questions. And then, of course, the conclusion of this is, if you think you really need this granite, you may want to think about supporting each one in the middle. They're strong enough. They're 1 foot thick, right?
Yep.
You may want to think about some of those support so that they can be supported regardless of what happens to the wall in the vicinity of any of the granite slabs. So
Understood.
I have some suggestions on what that would look like, but just a little reinforced beam or column, whatever you want to do.
Yep. Yeah, the idea behind the granite cap on there was sort of twofold. One is that it establishes a finish elevation, a finish grade for the whole thing. If you look at the north end, it's approximately 2.5 feet lower than the current elevation at where the flagpole sits. Mm-hmm. So we held that as our top elevation going all the way over. And then the other idea behind that was, yes, it brought it up another foot, so that gave us a little bit more protection. They're large, heavy granite blocks that are pinned into that. If some sections should fail of the existing vertical wall, hopefully they're long enough that they'll be pinned in other locations, and you can always do repair and maintenance to something like that if needed. But the general idea was to raise it up and hold that consistent elevation throughout the whole length of the project.
So do you think you're going to have any issues about drainage behind the wall? Because it's going to overtop.
It is
right?
going to, it will overtop, yes. Yeah.
So even though you've had an experience where a storm came in and washed a bunch of debris onto the property and then wiped out all the vegetation, it's going to happen again, right? This wall is not going to prevent that from happening. So the owners know this.
They know that, yeah. It's
okay.
It's
so this is
you can't.
You'll be back soon.
I mean, if they wanted to build the wall all the way up to the top of the windows, I suppose they could, but it's just not feasible. It's not practical. It's not logical.
Well, I'm just thinking about more higher level of riprap. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's just a suggestion.
Yep. Okay. Thank you.
So can you revise the drawing to show what might change for the VE19 water level? And could you show the base flood elevation?
Yes, absolutely.
On there?
Yep.
Because I think it's gonna be quite interesting to see just how high the water really will get above the wall.
Understood.
That's it. Thank you.
I'm surprised that those trees are still alive.
Yeah.
And if you have no way of draining the water out when it overtops, they're not going to be alive much longer because the salt water is going to stay in there.
Well, the riprap's not going to hold water back in and of itself. I mean, these are large angular blocks. There's interstitial space in between those that allow for water to drain back
So
through.
that's what you're allowing
They're-
for drainage.
They are allowing, when the waves come in, to crack upon those waves and then disperse themselves, as opposed to hitting a vertical wall and shooting straight up. It's that blunt force on a vertical wall that does a significant amount of the damage to it. So by having large regular rock, when a wave comes in, it hits it, it breaks up its energy, its force. So hopefully there'll be less that overtops and shoots up over onto the property.
Okay, you're going to have any fill in between these boulders?
Yeah, there'll be typically you put in smaller aggregate, we can call it like a 6-inch minus, a 12-inch minus. So stones of this size to that size that are in behind the larger rocks, so they won't be displaced.
Okay, and you'll get fast enough drainage that way, you think?
Yep.
Okay.
So on your application, there's two questions here about the type of sewage disposal and water supplied by. So is this private septic and private well, or is it public's? Are they on public water and sewer?
I don't have the answer off the top of my head.
Well, it's indicates here as private on both of those.
Okay.
I mean, it's kind of a detail, but could you verify and just update the?
Yeah, we can show
application?
where the leach field is on the property.
All right, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, so in that case, I'm going to open the public hearing. And
Oh, hang on.
No
I-
hands are raised.
no
Nope,
hands
too
are
late. We
raised,
already opened the public
Okay, I
hearing.
had one more question, sorry.
but one
I have
more.
one more question. So you say it's in the Cape Porpoise East, but I looked on the map, you sure it's not Cape Porpoise Square? Because it's right there next to the Cape Porpoise. It's not, the map I have is not very distinct, but it looked to me like it's more like Cape Porpoise Square than Cape Porpoise East.
Okay.
The east is on a separate landmass, but I mean, it could lap across the water, I don't know how that, but could you verify?
Because the island across the road.
Yes.
Across the river from there is in 2 zones.
So
Yeah.
you think it's in
That's what-
square, not in east?
Well, that's my question.
Yeah.
To me, if I was just looking, I would say yes, but I don't have it.
Michelle is checking, I think. What's the
Michelle is checking, okay.
Let's see.
Lisa does this part of the applications for us. She's good, so
Yeah.
my money's on her.
I'm pretty sure
Okay.
that's right. I remember checking this when I was going through the application.
Okay.
Okay,
I can add the labels.
all right. Now, there's a bunch of stuff you just.
Well, I think it's pretty complete, because really most of everything I'm talking about is details.
Right, we declared it complete last.
Oh, okay, right.
So the question is, should we continue the public hearing to next time and then approve it then?
Yeah, I think so. Make,
Take a motion to that
oh,
effect.
so I move to continue the public hearing until the next meeting.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
You in favor?
In favor?
In favor?
Approved. In favor?
In favor.
Thank you.
Okay, so what that means is that next time, this is little stuff that Larry just talked about. Assuming we get all of that, then we'll, once again, open up a public hearing, and probably no one will speak, and then we'll approve. So
Yeah.
we'll see you next time. or
Un-
see Lisa
understood.
next time.
So just to
you.
make sure I have the to-do list correct, the 2017 flood elevation shown on the plans and cross-sections
Yeah.
and what ramifications that may have.
Yeah,
Show the leach field and whether or not we're east or square.
and then, just double, yeah, and then just
Your east.
assess your proposal, how the VE 19 flood map might affect what you're proposing.
Yep.
That's really it.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. That brings us to item 230801, Quayside Hotel Associates. Familiar face here.
I know. Well, good evening. Thank you so much, members of the Planning Board. My name is Tina Hewitt-Gordon. I'm the General Manager at the Nonantum, and I'm here representing Seaside Hotel Associates, doing business as the Nonantum Resort on Ocean Avenue in Kennebunkport. So in front of you, you have an application from us to work on the integrity of our back lawn, if you will. We do have we are pending a full DEP approval, which was submitted and accepted by them back in the beginning of April, maybe mid-April, and they have said that we would have an answer by the end of October, pending approval. So I bring before you the fact that our back lawn, if you've been to the Nonantum, is a bit unsightly because of the rising storm water and just the general condition of the seepage that's been happening over time. The back lawn has really sunk a lot. We've done a considerable amount of work to the lawn. We've put a whole new drainage system, whole new cement chambers back in 2016. And although it was effective for the first year, it was not the long-term solution that it needed to be able to take that lawn back to a pristine look for a resort such as the Nonantum. So we have been working with civil engineers, and Jeff has put together some plans for us that basically we need to have a considerable amount of fill brought in to raise the level of the back lawn so that the drainage can be angled towards the river instead of into the center of the lawn where it pools currently. So since we are obviously in the riverfront zone and every other protection zone on the river there, we're here for your blessing to be able to move forward with this project.
I guess to help me, we didn't get a planner's note. The real issue here is just the amount of fill, correct?
Yes, that, and apologies for not having planners know, I was gone last week, I
Yeah,
wasn't in the
yeah.
office. It doesn't fall in the purview of review for the code enforcement office, so based by default under Article 10, it comes to the review of the planning board.
Okay.
Really just looking for your approval.
I have a couple of comments.
Certainly.
Your application. There are a couple of places that are a little confusing. I got the certificate of good standing, but you haven't checked the box that you have one there, for example. And on water supply by KKWD, I understand, but you haven't checked that box. You've checked.
Okay.
Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry, you have. Well, there are 3 boxes there. No, I'm sorry, you haven't checked the right box. Okay. This application is confusing, the application form, I'll grant you that.
Okay, I apologize.
But you
So,
might go through and amend that form so that it is correct in front of us. The owner of
oh,
record is,
I
this-
apologize. I see exactly what you're looking at. I
Yeah.
checked the wrong box.
Yeah.
I will fix that.
the owner is the Seaside Hotel. The applicant is basically you, who's been authorized. You don't have to worry about that. It's just that if I would putting it down there, I'd put down owner of record, same as above, if you want to, since it could be applicant or authorized
Okay.
agent.
Yes.
So, there's no book and page listed on that deed, and it would be helpful for the record if we had that. It's,
Oh,
some
the
of it
old
is there, but
photocopy
it's
there.
not readable. So those are
Understood.
just housekeeping
Okay.
things.
Thank you for bringing that to my attention. I can get that all taken care of.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a little confused about this and what we really need to review here, because I was looking at LUO 5.6, which says you need a written soil erosion sedimentation control plan. Do we need that for this if they're gonna put in fill? I don't know what they're gonna do to stabilize. I'd like a little more detail on what you're gonna do to stabilize that, so that all the soil you put in the next storm doesn't just wash out
Okay.
or get all muddied out with,
Okay.
Prelude. And then after everybody's danced around the fire there, go
So
right out.
I had the same question.
Yeah.
So as I understand it, the issue here is that when the storms come, the soil erodes. The velocity is so high that it erodes the soil.
So what's happened is it's compacted over the years. So the stormwater comes in, and it's not able to flow back out. We have a backfill, so that at high tide the water can't come in. It'll trap the salt water. But at that same time, what ends up happening is the water comes up, it sits on top, and it can't drain back out. So salt water is sitting in an area that it almost becomes like a pond back there. And so the land itself, one very quick note, on the plans that were turned into you, it's showing artificial turf. We since removed that because it was quite unsightly. And we just did a surface soil with some seeding. So if you do see that and you happen to go to the Nonantum and say, wait a second, there's no artificial turf here, you're not seeing things. There was some there last year. It is no longer. But what's happening is the water would basically pool, become a pond, and then it becomes that, I don't know the right technical term and I apologize, but almost like a slimy, slippery mess. So it was becoming a hazard. That's why we put down some of the artificial turf to avoid the safety issues. But again, what's happening is the soil isn't going out, it's just settling down, and the water just sits on top until the tide goes out, and then the drainage that we have eventually works. But the tides have been so high that it's more of a recurring issue.
So I noticed on your drawing L1, you show a underground stormwater concrete chamber system. How does that work?
So that's part of the system. There's a few almost manhole drains that were installed as part of that system to allow the water to be able to seep down. It collects in these concrete chambers until it's able to be filtered out.
So you have some drain from those chambers out to the river? Okay. So this is not an erosion problem, this is just a water standing problem?
I think it's a combination of, that's correct, it's not erosion, it's the water that's coming from all the storm water that's coming from the road, from Ocean Avenue, from the property down.
Oh, I
and then
see.
you're getting the high tides. So we have almost like that perfect storm of two water forces coming together.
You almost need to divert water from Ocean Avenue to somewhere else, I don't know, that's another issue.
It's almost like it's a stormwater retention basin.
Yeah.
That's come up.
So
You're planning on planting something on top of this concrete?
No, well, what we will end up doing is having the fill come, the fill will be brought in to raise the level up of the lawn up. And then they will, Aaron Welch and Mark Welch will be doing the work. They're going to be taking and diverting the water so that it will be flowing out into the river. So it is a slope.
okay,
So
so
won't you be taking fresh water out into the river? Is that allowed?
It's rainwater.
Oh,
It's not, we're not putting anything, we're not pumping anything out there. It's natural, stormwater that's happening. But again, the issue the major issue that we're having is the combination of the two forces of the regular stormwater that happens, but that the tides that are coming in that sit on top of the, lawn.
okay, so in a related issue, also on drawing L1, I notice you refer to the FEMA the flood insurance rate maps of 1983, but those have been superseded by the 2017
Okay.
maps. And it shows you're in an AE 12 zone. I looked on the map and the whole lot floods up basically to the original hotel.
Mm-hmm.
So, my question would be, how would your proposal change considering the FEMA 2017 flood maps? That you may come up with a different answer. And it sounds, well, I don't know, how would your proposal change?
Okay.
It sounds like you have a drainage problem, and you may have an erosion problem as well with the higher water level, right? Because the water will be flowing through there. I don't know.
I guess from the drawings, I don't see from whence the water is going and how it's flowing across this.
Yeah, it's
Because
not
it
obvious.
sounds like, I think you got up there, you got Ocean Avenue and the hotel on that, and you got water that's coming there, flowing down somehow across the property that you're gonna change. How it's flowing, the direction it's flowing to get to the river. And I guess I'm just trying to figure out how that goes and where this, what's the volume of the water? It's really a rain event, if you got an inch an hour, okay, how much of that from Ocean Avenue is coming? I don't know if it's coming down a hill. I don't know if your point's at the bottom of the hill or the top of the hill to figure out how this works.
So on the back lawn, I think addressing that issue is what we worked on back in 2016 with putting all of those chambers in underneath the building to be able to help collect all of that with the storm drains that we have back there. It worked for a while, as I said, but then we, on top of the factor that the tides have been getting so high, we get so much water on that back lawn, it just simply can't drain out. So that the storm water the basins are full, and then the tide water comes in and it can't drain itself back out. So in order to, raise the elevation of the back lawn to allow for natural drainage, that doesn't include the concrete chambers.
Have you had an engineer?
We do. He's going to be
marine
here. He wasn't
engineer
able to
work?
be here this evening for the initial review. Jeff Oliva is our engineer, and he will be here with me at the next meeting.
Now, is he with Welsh?
No, he works for civil engineers. He's the one who did all the plans.
Okay,
So is the objective to elevate the soil mass to be above the flood elevation? Is that
I don't know
the point?
I don't know the correct answer to that, and I'd want to defer to him. So I'm taking copious notes, and I'll send it off to him, and I'm happy to follow up.
Because I don't know how you're going to, this seems almost an intractable problem.
It seems like it sometimes, you're right.
Yeah.
It sounds like
So,
you need to work with the town to address the problem of all the water coming through.
Oh, we have. I mean,
It's
we've,
coming- The bulk is coming off Ocean Ave, and not your lawn, is it, or? Your lawn's big, so.
Our lawn's very big. It is very large. But again, the issues that we're experiencing now aren't, but I'll talk to Jeff about it, but I do not believe it is caused by the stormwater. The issue that we're having is because of the tides. We have a problem with the seawall, which is a separate application that's with the town for some maintenance work that needs to be repaired. And so if during the high tides, the water comes up over our seawall, and then it's seeping down into the lawn. It's one area. But Werner's very aware of this situation. He's been wonderful in helping us and guiding us to this point where we got to the point that this is the option to be able to rectify the situation on the back lawn, but it would need your approval. It's out of his purview. It needs planning board approval, and obviously it needs the DEP approval as well.
for the repair of the seawall?
No, the repair of the seawall is just some maintenance that needs to be done. When the seawall at our abutting property was repaired, did a little bit of disruption to our seawall, in addition to the tides and everything that's happening. So we need to have all of that repaired. And that's something that's is able to be done in a permitting process through the code
So
office.
I did happen to notice your seawall, it's very steep, and, I mean, it's definitely testimony to the skill of the people that built it. It's very impressive. And so the thought that occurred to me is if you're gonna add a bunch of weight to the lawn, I mean, you may wanna double check that your seawall, because it's more like a retaining wall, it's so steep. You may wanna think about, whether, you know, whether the repair you anticipate is gonna be adequate. So really, your seawall repair and this need to be considered together because, well, just because of the.
They'd be done simultaneously.
Well, but I mean, the solution for one needs to be considered in conjunction with the other. The integrity of the seawall.
Yes.
If you pile up too much dirt out there,
Yes.
Just topple.
it could be an issue.
Yeah.
That's it.
I think that we're probably gonna wanna continue.
Yeah.
Well, I think so.
Review
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay, so I can have him come, and I have a list of questions, and obviously there's a few little housekeeping items
Yeah.
in the application, which I will amend.
And if we could, you know, I can't see elevations on this EC1, if we could have a larger diagram that shows elevations maybe.
Mhm.
And some idea of how the work is going to be done.
And just like you'd have with a stormwater type, how, if it's tide coming in or coming in off of Ocean Ave, where the flow is currently and where you think it's gonna go after you're done.
Yeah.
Because I can see them not wanting you to divert it all right into the river from Ocean Ave. Probably that's not gonna work either.
Okay.
Well, I know you have a low point there, kind of right down the lawn, right out to the river.
Mhm.
But if it's all flooded, that doesn't really make any difference. It's going to be just flowing, right?
Once you top it, it'll just.
So if you could just take a look at the implications of the FEMA 2017 flood map showing you're in an AE12 zone, that might help clarify a workable solution.
Okay.
It's not obvious.
Yeah.
Okay. Very good.
So, gonna continue the
Initial review.
until next time.
Okay, very good.
That takes a motion, does it?
I'll make one anyway. I'll make a motion to continue the initial review.
Second.
Okay.
Approved.
Approved.
Very good.
Approve.
Approved.
Thank you.
We will see you next time.
Okay, see you next time.
And I'm gonna-
Very good.
May I just ask one question? Would you, as far as the housekeeping items and having the application updated, would you like me to have that taken over to the town hall prior to the next meeting?
Oh, please,
That
yeah.
would be
Yes.
great.
Would you like me to have it mailed to each one of you as well, or just file it with the town?
Get it electronic to Lisa, she can get it by email to us.
Okay,
Yeah.
very good. Thank you.
All right, which brings us,
Okay.
Ray, to reading a finding of facts.
So I appreciate the updates you made to your documents. Thanks for considering my comments and questions.
Absolutely. Great comments, great questions.
And thanks for making applicable updates, because I know there were some that, well, I know that your updates benefited from the result of an actual engineer looking at whether you needed some of the things. So
Absolutely.
Thank you for doing that.
No, thank you for the comments.
Well, thanks for taking the time to consider all those comments.
Yep.
So let me just read this finding of facts.
Yeah, we don't really, you don't need to be here, but thank you
Okay.
for.
Yeah.
You don't want to miss anything. Very.
So this is the Kennebunkport Planning Board finding of fact and decision application of the St. Anne's Episcopal Church for 167 Ocean Avenue. Following site plan reviews pursuant to the Kennebunkport Land Use Ordinance held on the 2nd of August 2023 and the 16th of August 2023 in a public hearing held on the 16th of August 2023, the Kennebunkport Planning Board makes the following findings of fact and conclusions and renders the following decision subject to the conditions enumerated below. Findings of fact are as follows. The owner of record and applicant is St. Anne's Episcopal Church with mailing address of P.O. Box 44, Kennebunkport, Maine 04046. In a letter dated June 27th, 2023, owner of record authorized Walsh Engineering Associates, Inc., to act as agent in this matter. Address of agent is 1 Karen Drive, Suite 2A, Westbrook, Maine, 04092. The property has a street address of 167 Ocean Avenue, Kennebunkport, Maine, 04046. The property is identified as map 7, block 1, lots 9 and 9A on the municipal tax assessor's maps. The property is located in the Cape Arundel Shoreland and Resource Protection Zones. The project site is located entirely within the 250-foot shoreland setback dimension and in zone VEEL 18 per FEMA flood maps. The property is located substantially within the 250-foot shoreland setback dimension. The owner demonstrated a legal interest in the property by providing a deed for the property recorded in the York County Registry of Deeds, Book 1888, pages 688 to 706 on October 29, 1970. Owner demonstrated a further legal interest in the property by providing an easement agreement between inhabitants of the town of Kennebunkport and St. Anne's Episcopal Church, recorded in the York County Registry of Deeds, Book 19262, page 259 on June 26, 2023. Applicant has submitted the application for the permit by rule, PBR, required by the Natural Resources Protection Act, NRPA, to the Maine Department of Environmental Protection, MDEP. The existing property consists of graveled access drives, stone walkways, parking areas, a garage, the bastion of Old Fort Lookout area, St. Anne's Rectory, and St. Anne's Episcopal Church. The property is located on a small peninsula of land known as Old Fort Point. The peninsula extends into the Atlantic Ocean with shoreline exposure along the western, southern, and eastern boundaries. An existing masonry seawall extends approximately 1,000 feet along the entire seaward face of the property and is supplemented with riprap in some areas. The property comprises approximately 3.16 acres per information provided by agent. The area combines the individual areas of lots 9 of 2.52 acres and lot 9A of 0.64 acres. Lot coverage exceeds 20% for both lots combined together and therefore is non-conforming. In an application dated July 13, 2023, applicant proposes to demolish approximately 420 feet of masonry wall and replace it by the reinforced concrete seawall. The reinforced concrete seawall will include a stone veneer to give it the appearance of a masonry seawall. A portion of the seawall will have riprap placed seaward of the wall. Replacement of the seawall is needed due to the age of existing masonry wall, rising sea levels, and increased storm severity and frequency. The church has seen overtopping and washouts behind and through the masonry wall. The proposed project is designed to protect the most vulnerable and historic features, the rectory, the church, and the columbarium. Site visits in 2022 and earlier this year revealed that the wall has been undermined by wave action along the base, with overwash eroding the landward portion of the parcel behind the wall. Additionally, riprap along the seaward face of the wall has failed, resulting in the loss of material over time and decreased resiliency. The new reinforced concrete seawall will be located along the same route as the existing masonry wall. No expansion of lot coverage is anticipated. Applicant requests no submission or performance waivers from requirements of the Kennebunkport Land Use Ordinance. Pursuant to the requirements of Article 1010A of the Land Use Ordinance, guidelines for decisions, the Planning Board shall approve a site plan application unless it makes a negative ruling on one or more of the following identified findings, which would otherwise compel denial. The proposed use meets the definition or specific requirements set forth in the Land Use Ordinance and will be in compliance with applicable state or federal law. Finding yes. The proposed use will not create fire safety hazards and will provide adequate access to the site or to the buildings on the site for emergency vehicles. Finding yes. The proposed exterior lighting will not create hazards to motorists traveling on adjacent public streets and is adequate for the safety of occupants or users of the site and will not damage the value and diminish the usability of adjacent properties. Finding yes. Comment: no lighting will be added to the seawall. The provisions for buffers and on-site landscaping provide for adequate protection to neighboring properties from detrimental features of the development. Finding yes. The proposed use will not have a significant detrimental effect on the use and peaceful enjoyment of abutting property. as a result of noise, vibrations, fume, odor, dust, glare, or other cause, finding yes. The provisions for vehicular loading and unloading and parking and for vehicular and pedestrian circulation on the site and onto adjacent public streets will not create hazards to safety, finding yes. Comment, applicant obtained easement from the town of Kennebunkport to maintain the seawall in perpetuity. One easement is for repair and future maintenance of the seawall. The second easement is for construction access. The proposed use will not have a significant detrimental effect on the value of adjacent properties, which could be avoided by a reasonable modification of the plan, finding yes. The design of the site will not result in significant flood hazards or flood damage and is in conformance with applicable flood hazard protection requirements, finding yes. Comment, the height of the reinforced concrete seawall will be approximately 3 feet higher than the existing masonry wall. Adequate provision has been made for disposal of wastewater or solid waste and for the prevention of ground or surface water contamination, finding yes. Adequate provision has been made to control erosion or sedimentation, finding yes. Comment, erosion control measures have been provided in the application. Adequate provision has been made to handle stormwater runoff or other drainage problems on the site, finding yes. Comment, scuppers and field inlets will be provided behind the seawall for effective water drainage. The proposed water supply will meet the demands of the proposed use or for fire protection purposes, finding not applicable. Adequate provision has been made for the transportation, storage, and disposal of hazardous substances and materials as defined by state law, finding not applicable. The proposed use will not have an adverse impact on significant scenic vistas or on significant wildlife habitat, which could be avoided by reasonable modification of the plan, finding not applicable. The proposed use will not cause unreasonable highway or public road congestion, finding yes. Existing off-site ways and traffic facilities can safely and conveniently accommodate the increased traffic generated by development as far away from the development as the effects of the development can be traced with reasonable accuracy, finding not applicable. Then, when a proposed development will be located within the shoreland zone or resource protection zone, in addition to the requirements of the Kennebunkport Land Use Ordinance, Article 10, the townwide regulations in Article 6, the performance standards for specific activities and land use in Article 7, approval of the development will also require that the board makes positive findings based on information presented that the proposed use will maintain safe and healthful conditions, finding yes. Will not result in water pollution, erosion, or sedimentation to surface waters, finding yes. Will adequately provide for the disposal of all wastewater, finding yes. Will not have an adverse impact on spawning grounds, fish, aquatic life, bird, or other wildlife habitat, finding yes. Will conserve shore cover and visual as well as actual points of access to inland and coastal waters, finding yes. Will protect archaeological and historic resources as designated in the comprehensive plan, finding yes. Will avoid problems associated with floodplain development and use, finding yes. Is in conformance with the performance standards as set forth in Section 5.6, erosion and sedimentation control of the Kennebunkport Land Use Ordinance, finding yes. Any negative finding by the board means the application has been denied. The application is otherwise complete. Conclusions. Article 1010A of the Land Use Ordinance mandates that the planning board shall approve a site plan application unless it makes one or more identified findings that would otherwise compel denial as noted aboard, and as noted above, the board makes no such findings. Decision, the site plan application identified above is hereby approved. Conditions of approval, if any, pursuant to Article 1010, 1011, and 1012E. The applicant pursuant to 1012E shall notify the planning board prior to the transfer of rights to construct an approved project. 2, the applicant must record a copy of this decision and provide proof of such recordation in the York County Registry of Deeds before any permits may issue or before any construction activity may commence. 3, the applicant shall comply with all terms and conditions of the Town of Kennebunkport ordinance as well as the main DEP approvals. And that's it. Thank you.
So, take a motion.
I move to approve the finding of facts.
I'll second it.
Approve.
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 Approved.
Okay, so we're just gonna sign it. I don't think, do we have a notary here?
No, I'm not a
No,
notary.
you're not a notary, okay, so
And there's no plan.
you'll have to get a
I was
copy.
you know where to find us.
Yeah,
We know where they are.
April's a
And
notary.
there, is there a
I
plan
think we
set
put Becky
to-
on that. April's
No.
out right now, but Becky will notarize.
Okay.
So I appreciate you adding that, the wave force, information and clarifying the rebar situation and noting you don't need a shear key.
Yep.
That was all key.
Yeah, it was good stuff.
That was great.
Yep.
Thank you.
Now, one thing, Nina asked to become the case manager for the Nonamp. Nina's
Okay.
going to do that, where my tendency would be to look at one of these nice civil engineers I have over there. But
I'll have some comments.
we're kind of overloading
Well,
them.
you've already done two fairly substantial ones, Larry, so
Anyway, I will take a motion.
See you guys.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
I'll second that. So
All in favor?
we are
Favor.
adjourned. Thank you, everybody. But everybody still has to sign this piece of document.